Greetings and welcome. Well, this is going to be my introduction for Steemit, but it's going to be done in several parts because I think you need to get the full story so that you can truly understand where I've been and where I'm going. And a lot of people are kind of mystified by me. They're kind of puzzled. And I guess this is because, when I've been tested, I have been tested as a genius, but I just don't understand why some people don't get what I'm saying. But I would imagine that that's because they're not geniuses. Not to brag, because I usually don't think of it like that. But the reality is that apparently I am more intelligent than most people. So a lot of what I'm trying to say and do goes over their heads, and they don't understand what I'm saying and what I'm talking about. Now, I'm doing this in video format because that's more comfortable for me due to my situation right now. It's much easier for me to communicate in a video format or in an audio format than it is to communicate in writing. I used to be a really good writer, and I still am actually. But my typing has become very poor, and so now it takes me a long time to produce articles and things like that. And one of the reasons is because of all the errors in spelling and typing that I make. So it's much easier for me to communicate in this format. Although, as you can see, I'm not very photogenic, but you'll just have to excuse that because I think the information will be fascinating. Anyway, now just to summarize some of the things that I can do, and a lot of people won't believe it, but it is true. I have exposure to many things. I have exposure, for example, and a lot of them are highly specialized, that it takes a lot of study to get this down. One of the areas that I am familiar with, and that I have a lot of knowledge in, and that I intend to make a course out of, I have knowledge on what they euphemistically call today the redemption process. And there is a redemption process, my friends. You see, a lot of people just take for granted who and what they are. They don't really stop to think about who they are. They don't stop to think about what they are. They don't stop to think about how we as a world have gotten into the situations that we've gotten ourselves into. And that is a problem. Oh, another thing I should mention at this point is that I don't generally speak using any notes. It's just stream of consciousness right off the top of my head. I have years of public speaking experience, and so am able to speak without notes and just like I said, in a stream of consciousness way. Now, sometimes that means that my discussions and what I say is a bit disorganized, and I tend to wander. But that's okay, because I think some of my digressions may actually be more interesting than the main point I was making. Anyway, getting back to the redemption process. Now, currently, for the last 23 years, I have lived, well, actually I'm in the 23rd year of my arrival to Costa Rica. I've been in Costa Rica now for 22 full years, and I just passed the anniversary of my arrival in Costa Rica on August 15th. So, in that time, I've become a dual national, which, if you know anything about that, that is not an easy thing to become. Most people only have one passport and one nationality. Well, I have two nationalities. Originally, I'm from the United States, so I have that nationality. But I acquired the Costa Rican nationality through naturalization. And so I have two nationalities. And but I've been living here in Costa Rica for 22 years, and I have no desire to leave, because things are very, very nice here. And that was actually the best decision I ever made, was to leave, because I was living in Los Angeles at the time, was to leave Los Angeles in 1995 and come here to Costa Rica, because I saw the problems that were developing in the United States, and I saw that the United States was headed for lots of trouble, and I did not want to suffer because of other people's ignorance. And so I left. Now, if you don't know that the United States is in a lot of trouble, because it's been 22 years now since I left, and the United States is in even worse trouble than it was back then. In fact, the United States, according to what I've been studying, is on the verge of total collapse. Yet most people are totally oblivious to this. The U.S. dollar and the U.S. economy are on the verge of collapse. And so you need to understand that, and you need to take preparations, and many of you already have. You know, investing in cryptocurrencies is one of the best things that you can do, because when the U.S. dollar collapses, that gold and silver will be about the only things left standing. Because it's not only the U.S. dollar that's going to collapse. The entire world economy is going down the drain. And it's going down the drain very soon. So, you know, a lot of people have doubted me through the years and have doubted what I had to say. But most people from experience have discovered that even some of the most shocking and most outrageous things that I have said have ended up coming true. So, if you have ears to hear, I suggest you listen. Because I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to do this. I'm not sure how many more years I've got. Because I've had numerous illnesses in the past 5 years. And so I may not be functional much longer. But in any case, getting back to what I was saying, and you know, I remember when I was in college, the president of the Student Senate and the editor of the university newspaper, especially her, she didn't think I was right, but I forget what even I was right about, but whatever it was, I turned out to be right. And they were just galled. They were just galled. They couldn't believe that what I had predicted had come true. And yes, I do have some psychic powers as well, which we'll get into later, because I have a multitude of things that I can do. I have a multitude of skills and a multitude of talents. In fact, that is one of my problems. because, one thing generally can't hold my attention all that long. And so there's a lot of projects that I have started that I've not finished. And so that is one of my lifelong problems. But I have had several businesses, one of which grew to a fairly good size because I was one of the first e-gold exchangers and one of the first adopters of e-gold, because that was back in 1997. Back in 1997, when cryptocurrencies hadn't even been dreamed of, hadn't even been thought of. But I was an early pioneer in the e-gold system, in the e-gold business. And I made quite a little bit of money off of that, because it was a very nice system and a very good system. But just to give you one example of what I'm talking about, at some point, I communicated with the people who were responsible for running e-gold, and I told them that you need to move e-gold out of the United States, because the United States government is an untrustworthy government. And as soon as e-gold begins to get any traction and begins to go anywhere, if you stay in the United States, they are going to come in and they are going to shut you down. I don't care if you have an offshore structure, because that was one of the things they said. Oh, well, we're protected because we have an offshore structure. I said, that is wrong, because the U.S. government deals in brute force. And once something like that is beyond their control begins to gain any traction whatsoever, the U.S. government moves to shut it down. And that's the only reason, actually, that Bitcoin and a lot of the cryptocurrencies have survived today, is because the banks and the U.S. government and many other governments around the world are against them and would like to shut them down, but they just can't. They just can't. In fact, one of the more popular, well, anyway, let me finish the story that I was telling. So I communicated with the owner of e-gold, and I said, you really need to move to an offshore location, because otherwise, the U.S. government will one day shut you down. And, the answer I got back was extremely snotty. And, said, well, who are you? Who are you? And if you don't like e-gold, we're just going to shut your account down. Which they almost threatened to do, but I got them to stop. But 2 years later, the U.S. government shut e-gold down just like I told them they would, and they put the owner in jail. They put the owner in jail. Now, let's fast forward a decade or so to Liberty Reserve. Now, Liberty Reserve thought they were smarter, but because they saw e-gold's example, and they thought, well, we better locate ourselves offshore, which they did. They actually located their office in Costa Rica, which is all well and good, although Costa Rica may not be the perfect jurisdiction, but it'll do, okay? Now, however, they made the stupid mistake of using a Costa Rican bank to store the money in. Well, actually, they were storing some money in some other places. They had some in Australia in a system there. But Australia was a very bad choice. And the U.S. government decided they had enough. And being the huge gorilla they are. Now, I understand the mentality of the Costa Rican government, the Costa Rican politicians, and they basically kissed the ass of the United States, except on some crucial issues like sports books and gambling casinos online. You know, they don't let the U.S. government force them to shut those down, but Liberty Reserve, they did. And I warned them. I said, is it because there are no other offshore banks in the world that you decided to use one of the worst banks in Costa Rica? Oh, and they got very upset with me. And I had told them several things, because they were having big parties and all kinds of other things, and they were putting on a big show for their office. They had their office in one of the most wealthy suburbs of San Jose, and they had a nice office building, and they had all kinds of stuff like that. And I said that just because your lawyer has a fancy office and charges a lot of money doesn't mean he knows what he's talking about. And you are doing exactly the wrong thing. What you should do, yes, you can be here, but you need to maintain a low profile. Instead, they maintained a high profile. So when the U.S. government decided that they wanted to shut Liberty Reserve down, they just leaned on the Costa Rican government, and the Costa Rican government complied and shut them down. And that reminds me of another investment program that I was in. Oh dear, that was well over 10 years ago now. Let me see, that was shut down in 2004. So it's now 2017. So that particular operation had been in operation for 20 years at that time. And the time that I got involved with it was in the year 2000. And it was one of the most bizarre situations you will ever see. In that, I mean, it's like you know, something from a spy movie or something. It's absolutely hilarious when you think about it. They kept a low profile, all right, and all that. In fact, it was such a low profile. Well, they tried to maintain a low profile, but the problem was they got too big. They got too big, and they got too many gringos involved in it. And one thing about gringos is they like to spread the word and talk about it and everything else. When they were told by the brothers to use discretion and not to talk about their investment. But a lot of people didn't follow directions. Now, one mistake that they made is they put their offices in a very big local shopping mall. However, now this is the weird part. The entrance was a door. Just as you entered the mall from one of the entrances, there was a door on your right-hand side with no sign, no label, no nothing. It was just a door with a camera. And what you had to do was you had to go and stand in front of the door, and then the guard would see that you were there and open the door for you and let you into the office. Now, that was a very wise policy. That was a very wise policy. So you entered the door, you filled out your form because they paid out once a month. So you filled out the form for how much money you were taking out that month, and you turned it in, and then they, you know, after a short wait, you would be ushered into another inner office where the owner, or actually it was a partnership of two brothers, so it was one of the owners of the operation was, and there beside his desk was a big box full of money, a big box full of money. And he would count out the money in cash, stuff it in an envelope, and give it to you. And then you would go back out to the outer room, and you would count it to make sure it was correct. And if it was correct, then you would leave, and you left through another door besides the one where you entered. Now, there were even important U.S. politicians that had their money there. There were CIA agents who had their retirement fund there. And there were high-up officials in the Costa Rican government that had their money there. So, this is one of the reasons they lasted so long, is because all the corrupt officials in Costa Rica, for example, we saw my friend and I, one time when we were picking up our money, we saw the mayor of the capital city, who was sitting there at the table counting out his cash. No doubt that was where he put his bribe money. Now, another thing this outfit did is you could not just come in and make a deposit. You had to get a referral from an existing customer. And you had to have a letter of referral, and only with that letter of referral could you open an account. And you had to open the account with a minimum of $10,000. Now, they would take checks. That was okay. But they also happily took cash. So, if you were a customer, you could walk in there with $100,000 in cash and deposit it, and they didn't care. And one of their little memos that they passed out to us periodically, it said, if anybody asks who you are, we don't know you. We don't know you. You don't exist. So you see, that's how they kept the tax people from nosing around in other people's business. They just didn't tell them anything. And of course, there had been federal agents who would come there and, would even bring in suitcases with $100,000 or whatever, okay? And if they didn't have that letter of referral from an existing customer, they were just sent right back out the door. That was a hard policy of theirs. And they paid 3% a month. Now, there was a whole bunch of hoopla at that time about how in the world did the brothers make 3% a month. Well, I have a good idea how they made 3% a month. There were actually several ways that they made 3% a month. But there was a local journalist for one of the local papers who just couldn't believe this return and began to write nasty stories about it. And that was that. Hold on, I got to see if I can pause this.